Sales is one of the most quantifiable aspects of business. So if you're in sales, you need to measure. As a sales leader, you need to measure your team. And if you're in sales as a salesperson, expect to be measured. And you want that. You want to be measured to know where you are and what's going well and what's not, and to be able to diagnose and solve problems to get better. Now, there's three basic categories of metrics in sales. There's output metrics, there's input metrics, and then there's conversion ratios. So output metrics are the things we usually look at when we think of sales, because it's the sales dollars. Now, we might have number of customers or number of deals, but for the most part, it's sales dollars. And it's exciting, and successful salespeople love to point to their sales dollars. But it's the result of something. It's an output measure. So by definition, something else had to happen to get you there. So that all starts at the other end of the spectrum with input measures, or what I call activity metrics. Things like proposals sent, sales conversations. And it begins with number of calls, number of prospecting calls or prospecting emails. So to start out, you want to just focus on, I suggest, number of prospecting calls. Some people do calls and emails. I like calls because calls are harder. And so if you're doing the calls, you're probably doing the emails. If you're doing the calls to new prospects, you're probably doing the follow-up calls. So if you had one metric to track in sales, I would suggest you track sales calls, outbound prospecting calls to new prospects. And if you set a goal of an expectation of every day, it needs to be 5 or 10 or 20 new prospects every day, you can add on there the other follow-up calls that you need to make and the emails that go along with that. Now, that activity is then going to lead to a certain number of sales conversations. Now, at some point, you'll have enough history to know, and this is where we get into the conversion metrics, you'll know how many calls does it take to get to a sales conversation. On average, for every 100 sales calls I make to new prospects, for every 100 new prospects, I get 10 sales conversations, or whatever your metric is. So at some point you can start saying, my goal isn't number of calls to make, it's number of sales conversations. It kind of ups the game, and it requires that you make the calls to hit the number. But if you've got the discipline to make the calls, you can just look at that next level. Eventually you can say, there's another ratio here of sales conversations that lead to proposal. Maybe that's a 50% number. So for every 10 calls I make, or 10 sales conversations I have, I get 5 proposals out the door. And then that same thing, once you've got a good history there and good discipline around making the calls to make the conversations, and you now can just look at proposals. Am I getting out the number of proposals I want every month? And then eventually you can track it to sales, because say maybe 80% of your proposals close. So now of your 5, 4 of those close. So to get 4 sales, I need to make 100 calls. You'll have that whole pipeline laid out, and you'll have those conversion ratios all the way along. You'll know that the 100 new prospects leads to the 10 sales conversations, half of which go to proposal, and then 4 out of 5, 80% of which turn into a sale. So you'll have that whole pipeline laid out. But it really just starts with sales calls to new prospects. And if you do that, you can really manage the whole chain of sales rather than just look at sales. Because I can't hold people accountable for sales, because they can't make sales happen. I can't make people buy. I can't hardly get my kids to bed on time or my dog to come when I call. How in the world am I going to get somebody to buy because I need this sale? So, but what I can control is the number of calls I make. And I know if I make those number of calls, it's going to get the sales conversations, which are going to get the proposals, which are going to get the sales. Now, the way, when you have this all laid out, if it's not working or it starts to not work after it was working, you can dig in and say, what's changed? What's not working? Is my scripting off? Am I not, where in this pipeline are things breaking down? Is my discovery bad? Am I not qualifying people well by asking good questions? Am I in the wrong market? Am I just talking to the wrong people? And that's why they're not moving through. But with those ratios and those metrics, you can start breaking that down. It all ends with that output metric that we all love, the sales dollars, but it all starts with the sales calls. So in sales, you've got to measure. And you've got to measure all these things and expect to be measured as a salesperson. But if you want to simplify it, it really comes down to the number of prospecting calls you make. Everything else is going to follow from there.